Alon is the author of Testimonies Without Boundaries, a best-selling book documenting the atrocities of October 7th. Over the past year, the book has been translated into 8 languages. Is that so?
It is.
Amazing. Endorsed by Sheryl Sandberg, distributed globally by Israel's Foreign Ministry, blacklisted twice on Amazon, yet still reaching #1 in multiple categories. Congratulations. You are formerly a COGAT spokesperson to the foreign press. You've spoken in 15 countries, addressed the House of Lords, faced threats, and been detained at Luton Airport. I missed that.
That's true. That's true.
Amazing, amazing. Your work is incredible. You're exposing anti-Semitism. You're refuting the false famine and the genocide claims against Israel, and you're confronting, obviously, the personal toll of trauma that we're all experiencing as we go into the second year since October 7th. So I guess the $1 million question is, emotionally, for starters, how are you, Alon? Good to see you.
It's very good to see you, and thank you for having me here. And I believe that all the mental, challenges, and you just asked me how I am, are worth it. I think I'm fighting for a greater cause. I know exactly what I'm aiming to achieve. I know how important it is. I know that we're in 2 years in the war already, and I know how important it is to make sure that we fight the worldwide denial of the massacre. I know how important it is that we commemorate the victims, and I know how important it is that we counter the rise of anti-Semitism that the Jewish diaspora experiences all over the world, with no exception. So I understand that it's just becoming more and more relevant. It's just getting more and more relevant, although it's been 2 years since October 7th. Its relevance and its importance just grows.
So let me ask you, you spent the last 2 years, you hit the road shortly after October 7th. You didn't waste a second. You collected the testimonials, as raw and painful as that was. And it's been, it's been quite eventful in the last 2 years. We haven't just been recovering from the war, we've been in an active war, and it's continued to escalate with the Iranian proxies around the Middle East. And as usual, Israel is the center of attention, but we're not getting the attention we want. I know that's the conversation of the hour. How can we do Hasbara better? How can we stop being blacklisted and censored for the truth? There's a film coming out now from Paramount that's being called propaganda, regardless of the fact that it's probably refreshingly one of the more accurate depictions of what happened on October 7th, the horrors. So how do you balance telling the truth, the raw truth of October 7th, and also making the book accessible to global audiences with all this censorship and pushback?
So I remember when I first tried to upload the book to Amazon, and they blacklisted the book. They banned it, citing violation of their content guidelines. Obviously, I know exactly what the reason was. Amazon sells many different anti-Israel, anti-Jews books. So obviously, I'm not buying their excuse. And then for the second time, when I was trying to sponsor an ad on Amazon itself, their excuse was that it was impossible due to current events. This is, and I'm quoting them, due to current events. So the attempt to silence us continues, but I'm never silenced, meaning that every time they try to silence us, I try to speak up even louder, and I do it in the most genuine way. I think, it has to come, you were referring to Hasbara, and I think it has to come from young people in the most genuine way. I'm not obligated to any organization, any institution. It's a personal initiative of mine, and it's been a personal initiative from the very beginning. It's been endorsed by many organizations and people and distributed, but it's been a personal initiative all the way. And I think that when it comes from an independent individual who actually believes in what he does, who does it pretty much voluntarily because he knows how important it is, I think it's more credible. I think it's more reliable. And I think this is how you do it. You take the young people who've been part of October 7th, generally of Israel, of the Israeli society, and you let them share their experiences and their thoughts and their stories, and this is more genuine, more credible, and this is how you do it. This is how you engage, especially with the youth. because we see the rise of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel propaganda, especially in campuses. So as a young person, I feel like I have the possibility and the opportunity to engage with those young individuals, and that's not easy. I've spoken in different places. I've spoken in Nijmegen, in the Netherlands, for instance, when pro-Palestinian protesters were surrounding the building, kept threatening me from not going to the university, kept threatening the attendees not to come, but the event happened nonetheless, although the protesters were breaking windows outside the hall and even entered the event itself, the venue itself, and kept trying to disturb and interrupt the continuation of the event. And it went on anyway, because again, every time they silence us, we have the obligation to speak up. And so I'm very determined and very ambitious to fight that censorship that you mentioned, that at those attempts to silence us, because this is exactly what they're trying to achieve. This is exactly what their goal is. Their goal is to intimidate us, to make us scared, to put us in a very uncomfortable position where we're afraid to speak up, and where their presence is the prominent presence, where we are basically silenced in our own pro-Israeli groups, coalitions, in some closed venue. But that's not what we should do. We should go on the streets, and we should be very proud with the hostage pin, with the flags. We should be very clear about our truth, because they have got the numbers. We know where they have got the numbers, but we have got the truth on our side, and that's what matters.
Well, have you been surprised by the response in some of your audiences to the extent that you had to change the tone, let's say mid talk, because what you thought was crystal clear and common knowledge is in fact being interpreted in almost, completely differently, in, like you said, in college campuses and in audiences around the world. So was there a point where you were like, wow, this is so much worse than I thought? Or for the most part, once you begin speaking and you're speaking to an audience that is aware of October 7th, they're mostly receptive?
So yeah, you keep getting surprised. I mean it. We always know, like, we know what's happening in the world. We know what the situation is, and you still keep getting surprised, because you see people from different communities, from different societies, from European countries, from the United States, who actually support Hamas, and I can see that they don't understand. I can see that their support is genuine. I can see that they are not only trying to provoke. I can see that their support is genuine, and that means that they really don't know enough. Um, and and I think that the message that I'm trying to convey, or most precisely, my goal is not necessarily to try and change their opinion, but more like giving them new information, something that they haven't necessarily been exposed to before. I have situations where I hear about it, like people are exposed to the book, they read the book, or they hear it from me during talks, and what happens is that they tell me, I really didn't know about that, and I'm really surprised that this is what Hamas is. I'm really surprised that this is what happened on October 7th. They don't hear it in the mainstream media, and I'm not surprised. As the former spokesperson for Koga to the foreign press, I'm aware of how the mainstream media works. So I'm very glad that I managed to give them new information. It's not about trying to change their perspective. That's mainly in the subtext. When they hear about the testimonies, they know about October 7th, they know about what Hamas is. On the contrary, they know how humanitarian Israel is. Then their opinions, probably their perspective, might change on the conflict. But that's not what I'm aiming to achieve. I'm aiming to provide them with information that they have not been exposed to yet. And that usually works when people are obviously willing to listen. That depends on the audience. Sometimes, obviously, there are violent protesters whose purpose is to just to disturb and support and lead and promote terrorism. That's not my goal. That's not my audience. This is not what I'm aiming to achieve. These 5%, I believe, that are very extreme, and they are very loud, but I believe that they are the minority. This is not who I'm reaching out to. I'm reaching out to, let's say, the 90% who are in the middle, who do not really know enough. And this is where I go and speak. And I've been to 15. This is the 16th country. I'm currently in Coimbra, Portugal, and this is my 16th country already. I'll be continuing from here to Scotland. And I keep doing that because I do think, and I do see the impact. It's not only about me thinking about how important it is, but it's also me seeing the impact on people who are exposed to the book or to my talks, and mainly to the atrocities. This is really not about me. I am the messenger, but I'm the messenger of people who are unfortunately unable to speak. And I believe that I'm their voice. I'm trying to make sure that I speak up for those who cannot speak up. And their voice deserves to be heard. It does.
Definitely, such important work. Where was there a moment where that most clearly showed how misunderstood Israel's reality is?
A specific moment. I mean, I keep getting exposed to it at all times, and I see it on the protests, when there is a huge pro-Hamas rally, for instance, in Times Square with thousands of pro-Hamas supporters, and they don't even try to avoid October 7th. They are praising October 7th. They are screaming that October 7th was the day when the Gazans started the revolution, So they're not even trying. This is the ignorance that you're exposed to, You always say, if I were in their shoes, I would be trying to avoid October 7th, maybe discussing other topics. But on the contrary, they are advocating for it. So this is the ignorance. But regarding Israel specifically, not only Hamas, I think people are really not aware. People are really not aware of the things that during my military service I was exposed to. I was there when Israel was facilitating the transfer of Gazan patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals for life-saving medical treatments. I was there during COVID when we were vaccinating hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. I was there during Guardians of the Walls operation when we were facilitating dozens of humanitarian trucks carrying humanitarian aid entering Gaza, and the Islamic Jihad at the time was targeting specifically the trucks, preventing it from entering Gaza. And obviously what's happening today, this is just the same with Hamas. Hamas is trying to steal the food consistently, and it does launch rockets when it can from residential territories, and it does hide behind the Gazan residents, and it does prevent them from evacuating when Israel tries to avoid collateral damage as much as possible. Do people know about it? Not necessarily. And when they hear it, I try to convey it, of course, especially aimed the accusations regarding the unbelievable accusations regarding famine and genocide and starvation, etc. I try to convey it from a perspective of someone who was there and saw it. I was on the border and I saw it. I was on Kerem Shalom and the Ores crossing, and I was in Judah and Samaria, and I saw how it happens. And I try to convey it again from a kind of a genuine point of view, because again, I'm not anymore a spokesperson of any governmental institution, and I'm not obligated to anyone, and yet I do speak about it. And I think it comes from it's more credible when I do it independently.
It's so important. I love that you're in the space of refuting the claims of famine and genocide and restricted medical access. It's priceless. People on the ground, someone that, like you said, was there to witness it with their eyes, first person. So, kol hakavod to you. So in your view, I mean, it takes a village. We are at this point, hundreds of us fighting day in and day out, pro-Israel advocacy, Hasbara. So in your view, what would you say after your experiences in the last year and a half? What is the single most effective thing that individuals can do or media outlets can do that can reduce misinformation in this conflict? Or is there no hope, and is it completely vindictive and purposeful, and we just have to stand there with our fire hydrants and try to put out those fires?
I would say you're referring to media and individuals, or mostly. So I would really say that there is hope. I mean, there is hope because we have to keep fighting. And I think that the Israeli society is different from any other society when it comes to trying and defend our country. Defend our country, because this front, the Hasbara front, the diplomatic front, is not less important than the warfare that we are, like the military warfare that we are fighting, because we're trying to fight countries which try to ban us from international events. We're trying to fight global banning from collaborations, and that affects basically every aspect of our life, from maybe the economy to culture to sports. And sometimes on one hand, I feel like perhaps we underestimate its importance. On the other hand, people come together and work together in order to fight this. But again, I would say that the only thing that we can do as a society or as individuals is share our personal stories. And unfortunately, we live in a country where each of us has a personal story. And we are all connected, not only to October 7th, but to events that keep happening in Israel on a daily basis, events that we're not necessarily very happy about, such terror attacks um, and we have 7, 8 fronts already that we are fighting. It's not Gaza, it's not Hamas anymore. It's we have 7 and 8 fronts, I would say already. So sharing those genuine stories, sharing your personal stories, speaking up for what you have experienced, for what your friends have experienced, for what your family has experienced, that's probably the most credible way to do it. And I can tell you that when you go abroad, you hear the loud voices, the pro-Palestinian voices, and you feel like this is really hopeless. But when you encounter those 90% that I mentioned earlier, when you speak with those 90% who really don't know what the situation in the Middle East is, and you share with them those personal stories of yours, it might change, it might make an impact. So this is
Well,
definitely my message to each and every one of us who wishes to make change regarding Israel, regarding Israel's diplomacy, regarding Israel's view in the international community. Don't give up.
well, we are living in the post Charlie Kirk era, the post Charlie Kirk world, where speaking your mind is dangerous and can cost you your life. Figures like Charlie Kirk, they shape the narrative for millions of people, young conservatives across the U.S., and it's a horrifying reality that somebody who is speaking the truth is taken down in cold blood like that. But for us, it's almost a familiar reality because we are surrounded by enemies who don't like anything that we say, think, feel, do. The fact that we exist is a problem. So, despite the fact that it was so shocking the way it played out on a public stage, I can't say that as an Israeli, I thought this was impossible. In a sense, it's almost inevitable when you have people living alternate realities where men are not men and women are not women and Israel is the oppressor and Hamas are the heroes, then anything goes, right? So the question becomes, when do we take a step back and say this person is not worth engaging? Because you can waste your whole life away on Twitter or talking to people on the streets who they're completely not receptive. They are the enemy, like you said. They are embracing October 7th. Bring it on. It's a flag in it's a feather in their cap. So the question is it a waste of time to even engage with these people? Do they care for the truth, or are they our sworn enemy? And our goal is to focus on the people who are still coherent and focus on having conversations with our youth in high schools and college campuses and beyond.
So I would say that first off, definitely the target audience is those people who are in the middle and are willing to listen. This is definitely our target audience. However, when you come and engage, or not necessarily engage with what you call the enemy, which is really the enemy, because people who go on the streets and praise October 7 are pro-terrorists, are the enemy. Obviously, I'm focusing on people who are not willing to listen, those, again, who praise terrorism. Those people are not people you should engage with. However, what you should do, what we should do as a society, as the Jewish diaspora, as advocates, is show presence, which means if that protest that I just mentioned in New York, where people were shouting Hamas, Hamas, praising October 7th, what we should do is not necessarily engage with them, but show presence and be there. When that happened on October 5th, 2024, basically 2 days before the first anniversary, we're getting very close to the second one already, they were marching there with Hamas flags, thousands of protesters on the streets of Times Square, and I was marching with them, with the Israeli flag. I wasn't trying to engage with them, but I was trying to show presence, to make sure they understand that they are not here alone, intimidating all the pro-Israeli supporters, and they can just wave their terrorism here all around New York, and we will stay silent to it, and they will intimidate us. So sometimes when it comes to it, I believe that we have to show presence. It's not necessarily about discussion, but it's about showing the other side. The other side, I'm talking about the other side that's trying to really support terrorism and intimidate us from speaking up. We have to show them that they can't achieve that by their violence. They won't achieve their goals by using violence against us. And they will continue to speak up despite their intimidation. So every time there is such a protest where Hamas is praised, where October 7th is praised, I go there and I march with them with the Israeli flag. And I think you know something, I'll tell you a secret. Every time someone asks me whether I'm afraid and whether I'm scared to go there with the Israeli flag, when they see an individual with the Israeli flag, they are intimidated because they don't understand how someone is so proud when they have no idea what they're talking about. You know, in the protest, I went to one of the protesters who's holding a huge sign arguing that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And I reached out to him. And I just, you know, obviously I didn't really want an answer, but I reached out to him to know what he knows. And I asked him, can you tell me more about the genocide in Gaza? And he told me, and I'm quoting, listen, bro, I really don't know, but there is a QR code here if you want to scan it. So really, but I have no idea, you know, they just sent me here. And I'm quoting him.
I'm just a walking
right?
sign.
And he was holding a huge sign. And
Yeah,
that's,
well,
that's what I'm saying.
we've seen those
We should show
arguments.
presence because they are sponsored by many different organizations and countries. And they have their support and they have got their numbers, but we have got the truth on our side. And once the truth is on our side, that's what matters. And this is why we should keep fighting.
Amazing. I was saying we've seen a lot of these TikToks and Instagram reels where Palestinian supporters are exposed for either not knowing what's on their sign, what they're talking about, what sea, what river, what war, what year. It's just misdirected anger and hate, unfortunately, that somehow just keeps getting funneled in our direction here. Poor little Israelis in the Middle East trying to do our thing. But at the same time, there are real life repercussions or experiences that happened because of anti-Semitism. You were, Tom, I missed this, but you were detained in the airport for holding a sign, claims of illegal occupation, that you're an Israeli, you occupied. Tell us more. What is this? What did this incident reveal about international bias in the West?
So I'll tell you what it was and what it reveals. You know, I'm still surprised and I'm still like shocked by the event. I really truly am. I was invited to speak to address the House of Lords, and the event was very meaningful and very impactful. And there were parliamentarians and lords, and people were crying because I was reading to them testimony after testimony from the book, unfiltering basically everything. And when I tried to come back to Israel using Luton Airport in London, basically, I was already through security heading towards my gate. And I was wearing an End Jew Hatred t-shirt. And one of the security officials was detaining me, basically stopping me. He said, I can't let you proceed due to, and I'm quoting, the illegal occupation that has been carried out by Israel since 1948. And October 7th was only one incident since the illegal occupation began. He used this device to call more security officials to start interrogating me in front of the entire airport. They took my passport. They said they would give it back to me after 2 minutes. They just want to look into something, and they basically didn't give it to me.
These were English people? Were they
English? British official support of official guards of the airport, and I think there were many of them. I can't tell you the exact number, but it started by one security official, and again, he used this device to call more, like I was a serious threat, so they called many officials to basically circle me. I was in a circle, you know, they were circling me, starting to interrogate me using their body camera. They took my passport and detained me in a restricted area. And only after looking at the CCTV, looking into details, I really didn't know exactly what was happening. After a while, they decided to let me board, to allow me to board. They even said that now they have to ask the airline, El Al at the time, whether they allow me to board or not. So obviously I filed a lawsuit against them because, again, once they try to silence me, I speak up. And the trial and the lawsuit is still ongoing. And saying that, and my purpose is obviously to hold these people accountable for their actions. And my purpose is not to make them love me by doing that, is to make sure they understand when there is anti-Semitism, they will handle the consequences. They will be held accountable for their actions when they act inappropriately against Jews, especially particularly in formal positions. There will be consequences. And I want them to be afraid to continue with their anti-Semitism. So again, my purpose is not necessarily to make them love me, but definitely to make them scared to support and promote anti-Semitism. And so I think that reflects very well on many anti-Semitic incidents that we have experienced worldwide, and we have seen it in many different cases at airports as well, but not only. And this is only my story, but there are so many other stories. And I think that the message for whoever is watching us right now when it comes to anti-Semitism is the only way we can counter it. First of all, we are the only ones who can counter it, because no one is going to do it for us. Let me tell you a secret: do not trust the authorities. We can definitely collaborate with them. We can definitely work with them. The authorities in different countries, in some countries, of course, may be helpful. I'm not saying that they're not, but the only ones we can trust are ourselves, are the people, are the Jewish diaspora, are the pro-Israeli supporters who are not necessarily Jews, but stand with us. And what we can do is fight back. By fighting back, it means speaking up against it, just like you saw regarding my case. I reached out to the media, to the press immediately, and I raised it all over the British media, and I filed a lawsuit immediately, and I speak about it very loudly and clearly, with my face, with my name, regardless, despite the repeated intimidations and threats that I kept receiving from the UK following that incident. And this is my encouragement to everyone who experiences anti-Semitism. Don't just say, this is what it is, this is the status, we live in the Germany of the 1930s. I do believe it's that far. I do believe that this is as extreme as they describe it. I do think so as well. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't fight back. We should, we have to, and if we don't, it will just get worse.
Wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. You are such a wonderful representative of the Jewish people in Israel. Thank you so much. Hang on. Perfect. Tells us right now that we're running out of time, so I could just wrap it up. Alon, first of all, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and your work with us today. I haven't been keeping tabs on you over the last few months. We did bump into each other at that, what was it, in Ashkelon for a second? In the train station? I don't even remember. But it's really beautiful, your commitment to the truth, your commitment to the memory of the survivors and the ones we lost on October 7th, the victims, the way you're standing up against anti-Semitism, against lies. It's powerful, it's needed. And on behalf of everyone, I thank you. For our listeners, you can find Testimonies Without Boundaries in multiple languages.
Right here as well.
You have it there. Follow Alon's journey as he continues to speak around the world. I'll put your links for social media and so on. Show us your poster quickly behind you. Is that the poster that got you arrested?
The poster over here.
I see it has the QR
again,
code.
the book is available in 8 languages already. The purpose was, again, to translate it into as many languages as possible and make sure that the people are exposed to it. And I think that this is not only, when I speak about the book and the 50 testimonies that are described in the book in a most unfiltered way, they commemorate what happened on October 7th, and they are an undeniable testament of the atrocities that were committed, of the cruelty of Hamas. I think every human should have it at home. It's not only about Jews, it's not only about pro-Israelis, it's about every human. My encouragement to people here is not necessarily to get the book, not only.
Well, my encouragement is to get the book. The link is in the show notes. Get the book and send the book. Exactly. Buy one and give one.
Definitely.
BOGO.
Send it to people who are in the media. Send it to your neighbors, send it to your friends, send it to your college friends. Make sure that people are exposed to it. Make sure that people know about what happened on October 7th. This is a great tool to use against the denial that we have been experiencing. So I think that these people, in my book, and I keep being in touch with them, these survivors, these volunteers, people who saw the wars, people who experienced the wars, people who lost friends and families, their voice needs to be heard. and they want their voice to be heard. So this is just my request for everyone who is watching us right now. Spread the word, make sure that their voice is heard, make sure that their stories are not forgotten and lost in history.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm Israel Chai.